So today we are talking about inequalities. Yesterday we talked about absolute equations, and today it's absolute value inequalities. So, by raising your hand, somebody tell me, what is the difference between an equation and an inequality? Yes. Very good. So equations are equal. There is one answer, okay? Where inequalities have greater than or less than, which means there are going to end up being many answers, okay? Because it's going to be like something less than a number. There's a few things we have to talk about here. When you have an and problem, the sign is less than and less than are equal to. I always remember this as less than, because when you have a less than, when I say, because see how it's a less than sign, I say less than, and. That way I remember that it's an and statement. Whenever you have an and statement, you have to write your answer as a single statement. So we're just going to pretend here that I have this problem and it's -1 and 1. And I'm going to have open circles there. And my graph looks something like this. Okay? So when you write an and statement, you're writing it as a single statement. When you have your graph, all you're doing is you're taking these two numbers and you're keeping them in the smaller and larger spots. So -1 is smaller than 1. My variable goes in the middle. We're just going to write that as x. And since we had less than signs at the beginning, these are both going to end up being less than signs. So when you're writing an and statement, your less than signs are always, these signs are going to be the same. And you're going to have your smallest number and your largest number and your variable in the middle. And this will make more sense as we are doing examples. Okay? But whenever you have an and problem, you're going to have less than. You're going to write your answer as a single statement. When you have an or problem, if this was an or, my graph would look something like this. And more often than not, your graph goes out in two separate directions. So and means they have to be overlapping. It has to be true for both of them. Where or, it can be either or. It doesn't matter. It only has to be one or the other. So this one would be x is less than -1 or x is greater than 1. I remember this one as it is great or. So when you have a great or sign, I say it as great or instead of greater, to remind me that it's or. You're going to have two separate answers. Some other things you need to remember is that when you have less than or greater than, that is an open circle. When graphing. When you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, that is a closed circle. Just kind of make this as a little chart. Okay, how I remember which one's open and which one's closed is with less than and greater than. See how it's just the less than sign. There's only one thing. So I just make the circle. When I have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, there's two parts. So that means I have to do two things. I have to make the circle plus fill it in. Okay? So less than or equal to is closed. Greater than or less than is just open. So far so good? Okay. Now, remember how yesterday when we had an equal sign, it was and it equaled a negative number, it was no solution, right? Today we have an inequality sign. And if you have an inequality with a negative number, your answer is either going to be all reals. And if it's all reals, there's a shortcut. You can make, it's like two straight lines and then an R around it. And that represents all reals. Instead of writing out the words, you can make that symbol. Okay? Or your answer could be no solution, which we talked about is just the 0 with the line through it. Now, it's pretty easy to figure out these answers. So you have this equation right here. It's saying the absolute value of x is greater than a negative number. So we know the absolute value of x will end up becoming positive or negative. Positive. When it comes out of the absolute value, it's positive. And then this is a greater than sign, and they're saying it's a negative number. A positive greater than a negative. Is that true? Yes. Since that makes a true statement, the answer is all reals. Because no matter what is in here, it's going to come out as a positive answer, and a positive will always be bigger than a negative. Right? Okay. Now on this one, again, the absolute value of x, when it comes out, it will always become what? Positive, but it's saying a positive is less than a negative. Does that make a true statement? No, that is false. And since it's false, no answer, no number will ever work, which is why the answer is no solution. Okay, thumbs up or thumbs down for this? Okay. So, example 1 is talking about what I just said here. So, I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to give me these two answers. So, you're going to kind of think about them the same way I told you to think about these right here. Okay, so for absolute value of y is less than negative 4, okay, on your fingers, 1 means all reals, 2 means no solution. So for example 1, do you think it's a 1 or 2? Is it 1 all reals or 2 no solution? Okay, good. All right, so when we do this here, the absolute value of y, that will always be what? Positive. Less than a negative. True or false? False. Therefore, this answer is no solution. Okay, on this one, 1 or 2. 1 is all reals, 2 is no solution. Good job. Okay, so absolute value of y is what? Positive is greater than a negative. True or false? True, which means the answer is all reals. Questions? Okay, what is different from example 1 to example 2? We're going to have to graph. Because on these, can I graph a no solution or all reals? Not really. Okay, well actually you probably could graph the all reals because it's the whole number line, but you don't have to graph these problems, but on these you do. What else do you notice is different about example 2? It's what? Positive 4. Okay, whenever you have like a positive number, you're going to have to make how many different equations? 2. Okay. Always get your absolute value by itself first, which it is. Okay, at this point, what sign is that? Which means, is it going to be and or? And, which means I'm going to write my answer as a single statement. Okay? So now, you are going to write your two equations. In your homework today, number 2 is just like this problem. I don't know if you want to make a note, but my last class, they had lots of questions. So number 2 in your homework is very similar here to example 2. So my two equations, my first equation is going to be y is less than 4. What happens when you multiply or divide by a negative number and you have inequalities? The sign flips. Okay, so you know how when we make the second equation, we make it with a negative? You are going to flip the sign. It is just like multiplying or dividing by a negative, so we are going to flip the sign. So my other equation is going to be y is what? Perfect. Y is greater than negative 4 is correct. There's no solving we have to do here because the letters are already by themselves, correct? So now we're going to graph. So I'm going to make a line. The only numbers you have to mark are the two numbers you have. Which number will go on the left? Thank you. Negative 4, and on the right we have a positive 4. At negative 4, is it going to be an open or a closed circle? Open. How do we know it's open? There's no line underneath. Very good. And And if your letter is on the left side, this inequality will tell you the direction you should be shading, okay? Or you should be going. This is saying y is greater than. If you think about it, hopefully you realize that all numbers that are greater would be to the right. But if you write a line here that's making an arrow, notice here that the arrow is going to the right. That will only work though if your letter is on the left side, okay? So here we go up and it's going to the right. At 4, is that going to be an open or closed circle? Open. And again, how do we know that? Good. No equal sign underneath. Perfect. Okay. And this one is going to the right or the left? Very good. To the left. Remember with and graphs, they have to be overlapping. Where they overlap is the answer. So right here, they're overlapping in the middle. Shade that part in. And then we need to write the answer. Okay? I talked about how to write the answer at the very beginning when we talked about ands. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to see if you can write this answer as an and statement, where you put everything together and write as one statement, just like I did up here. You want to write your answer for this problem just like that. In fact, if you write it on your whiteboards, that would be awesome, and show me. All right, sorry, I wasn't even looking. Go ahead and show me your whiteboards. Nicely done. You guys are awesome. Wow. I don't think anybody missed it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so -4 and 4. The only thing I noticed was one thing, but what variable was used in this equation? Y. So you should have y there. If you put x, would I mark you wrong? No. Okay, but just pay attention to those things. And then less than goes into both of those. Less than is what we started with at the beginning. So this is telling you that the answer is all numbers between -4 and +4. Any of those numbers would be a correct answer for this problem. If I said, is -4 a solution? What would you guys say? Yes or no? Is -4 a solution to this problem? Why not? Because it's not equal to. Good. Okay, but if I said, is -3 a solution? Yes, because it's within this. Do we have questions? All right. So on your homework, you're going to have to make a graph and make an answer like this. Okay, moving on. Okay, example 3. Is the absolute value by itself? Yes, so we don't have to do any work there. What type of problem is this? And or? How do you know it's or? Great or, very good. Okay, so how am I going to write my answer? As a single statement or two separate answers? Two separate answers. Okay, first 3 to get this correct are going to get a candy. Okay, so raise your hand when you have it. You can either write it on your whiteboard or I'll just check your notes. Also, if I ever give you candies but you don't like what I gave you, you can exchange it after we're done with this. Yes, you got it.
It's two answers, so it's just this one and this one, and then you don't write it as a single statement.
You can still graph it. You don't graph it, you can send them all rolled in. So your graph is just divided to seven. Does that make sense?
Good, except for this is only when it's overlapping. So this is not the answer, just those two.
All right. So, or problem. We write two equations. X plus 2 is greater than 5. X plus 2 is less than negative 5. Okay. Over here, I subtract 2 to both sides. X is greater than 3. Over here, what do I do? Subtract 2. What do we do when we have two negative numbers? We add them and it stays negative. This is where some of you made the mistake. So that makes a negative 7. Okay? This is an or statement. We graph it. What number's going on the left? Negative 7. What goes on the right? 3. At negative 7, is it open or closed? Open. And which direction will it go? To the left. At 3, is it going to be open or closed? Open, and it's going to the right. How did I know both of those were open? There isn't an equal to sign underneath. Equal to underneath means it's closed. So these are my answers. X is greater than 3 or X is less than negative 7, and then my graph. Questions? All right, example 4. We're going to do this one here together a little bit. But does anybody still need this problem? We're good? Okay. Is the absolute value by itself on example 4? No. What do we need to do in order to make the absolute value by itself? Good. Divide by negative 2 to both sides. What happens when you multiply or divide by a negative number? Very good. So I have the absolute value of 2x plus 4. This flips to become less than or equal to negative 6. Okay, at this point, this is when you would do and or, but I'm not going to do and or because why? It is a negative number. Don't forget, if it ends up being a negative number, you have two options for an answer. What are your two options? No solution or all reals. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to think about it, but remember, 1 is going to be all reals. 2 is no solution, and you can give me your vote on what you think the answer is. 1 is all reals, 2 is no solution. We should do sign language. We could do never mind. Okay, so go ahead and give me your vote. What do you think the answer is? Okay, most of you voted. Okay, no solution is correct. For those of you that did that, I think most of you that voted had that. So remember, anything that comes out of the absolute value will end up becoming a positive. Is a positive less than or equal to a negative? Is that true or false? That is false, exactly. Therefore, the answer is no solution. Are we good? Okay. Example 5. Is the absolute value by itself? No. You can't make any decisions on if this is an and or problem until your absolute value is by itself. Okay? So, what will I do first for this problem? Very good. Subtract 4 is correct. So now I have 2/3. Absolute value of 2x minus 2 is greater than 8. Am I good now? Okay, what do I need to do? Okay, we can multiply by 3 or just multiply by the reciprocal. What is my reciprocal? Very good. So to save myself a little time, I'm going to multiply by 3 over 2 to both sides. This cancels. I have the absolute value of 2x minus 2 is greater, and then over here I'm going to reduce. 2 goes into 8 how many times? 4 times, and 4 times 3 is 12. Am I good now? Yes. Okay. What type of problem is this? An and problem or an or problem? Or is correct. Great or. So we're going to make our 2 problems, and we know that at the end we're just going to have 2 separate answers. So do you guys want this one for candy again? Okay. Ready, set, go. Raise your hand when you have your answers. Have some candy. Okay, you guys are amazing. You got it. Okay, so I'm just going to do this real quick. We have 2x minus 2 is greater than 12. 2x minus 2 is less than negative 12. Add 2 to both sides. 2x is greater than 14. Divide by 2. X is greater than 7. Over here, add 2 to both sides. 2x is less than negative 10. Divide by 2 to both sides. X is less than negative 5. We go to graph this. What's going to be on the left side? Negative 5. On the right then is 7. At negative 5, open or closed? Open, and it's going to the left. At 7, open, going to the right. And here is my answer. Questions? Okay, it seems like you guys totally got it. Normally I would have you do this one on your own, but since we have 3 minutes left, I'm going to do this quickly. You guys ready? Okay, what am I going to do first? Good job. Negative 5 to both sides, or subtracting 5, we have negative 6. Absolute value of x over 2 minus 1 is greater than negative 6. Awesome. That is correct. Divide by negative 6 to both sides. Absolute value of x over 2 minus 1. What do I do with my inequality sign? Why am I going to flip it? Exactly. Good job. Less than 1. Perfect. Okay. X over 2 minus 1 is less than 1. And x over 2 minus 1 is greater than negative 1. Again, we flip our sign with the negative. Okay. If you want to just solve this and multiply by 2 at the end, you can. Or you can multiply by 2 and get rid of all the fractions at the beginning. Totally up to you. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of fractions. These cancel. I get x minus, don't forget to multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. is less than 2 times 1 is 2. Add 2 to both sides, and I get x is less than 4. Over here, 2's cancel, I get x minus 2 is greater than negative 2. Add 2 to both sides, I get x is greater than 0. I forgot to state back here, is this an and or an or statement? And, less than, and. Okay, so when I graph this, sorry, I was not showing that very well. When I graph this, we have our line. On the left side will be 0. On the right will be 4. Open at 0 going to the right. Open at 4 going to the left. Overlaps in the middle. My answer will be written as what? 0 is less than x is less than 4.